Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Cavalier. A great premiere. I really like this show. Kind of just jumping into it, obviously, we start off with, I love that he's still basically literally in the middle of a mission. I mean, I guess like the whole Gigi breakup is still a fresh wound and everything, so he's still kind of a hot mess. 'Cause I was thinking like, oh, he'd be dealing with it at home. It's like, no, apparently he's in the middle of a mission dealing with it, and he ended up getting shot because it's like, oh, he's kind of a sap for love, and it's like, oh, this man and this woman proposed to each other in a moment. He's just kind of, oh, it's beautiful, and he ended up getting shot because of it. And I love that Ray's like, okay, so you're not going to tell him it's my fault, right? Oh, you said it's my fault, right? Even though it technically is my fault. He's like, what do you mean? I kind of didn't show up to the meeting I'm supposed to show up to because I was with a girl. And it's like, and it was her life, and being with her more important than my life. And Ray kind of smiles, and he's like, no. I love that reaction. And just like, you know, just how everything goes down, him meeting Frankie, which the whole Lauren Cohen situation kind of like blows my mind. I guess it's because I'm so used to her accent as Maggie. She's been doing it for like the past 8.5 years or whatever, 8.5 to 9. So I'm used to hearing her with like Southern English accent, you know, like a Southern American accent. So it kind of catches me off guard hearing her not have it, because it's interesting, because I could have sworn I heard her like an interview where it seems, because like it seems like even her natural accent, it seems like it bounces between British and an American accent. It's like a mixture of the two. Maybe it's just like the one thing I heard. Like this was like a while back I heard it, but I was like, because I was in my head, it's like, oh, she is British. But I think she grew up in the States for such a long time that her accent kind of disappears a little bit. I think maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's just based on that one thing I heard. Nevertheless, going on a huge tangent. But I love kind of the back and forth. It's kind of interesting because it's like, I also love their code names is pretty cool. Like Will's code name being Cavalier, and Frankie's being Fiery Tribune. It's actually kind of sad when we kind of dive into her backstory and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, like her parents died in a terrorist attack, and it's like that ends up driving her to kind of be who she is, you know, so dedicated to the mission and stuff like that. And obviously Will is very emotional, but obviously Frankie is very kind of solitude, obviously representing like very two different approaches to how they handle everything. I love also that literally that whole Gigi breakup, everyone knew. His boss had a video of it, and it's like a literal video of the breakup. Apparently later on he finds out that Edgar and Frankie had seen the recording too. So it's kind of like, man, like who has not seen this? Like how much is that going to be held against him? And it's just kind of like, oh man, that kind of sucks. I also love what was he saying in the car? He was making, it's like, oh yeah, you CIA people, it's like running around with your jock straps, or, you know, whatever the female equivalent of a jock strap would be. Edgar's like, a sports bra, and Will looks at him and is like, thank you. He's like, no problem. But just like the back and forth between all of them was so good. Frankie, it's actually kind of sad because it's like, oh, Frankie with Dimitri and stuff like that, but then it's like, oh yeah, Dimitri ended up betraying them, and Will ended up having to put him down. You know, to be fair, I think she took that a lot better than I think a normal person would, like Frankie, because it's like, yeah, her and, you know, Dimitri are just kind of a thing, but for her it's kind of like, oh, I was using him just as much as he was using me. But even though like Edgar offered him money, so he blew up the plane that was the helicopter that was going to take them away, but at the same time it's like Will also put him down, but she didn't seem all that broken up about it. But like she said, she was using him, and it was kind of like, man, fact is, you know, it's like using sex transactionally, and it's kind of like sad. It's almost like he's judging her, and I love that. And she's like, really? At least I didn't pay off all the student loans. And Edgar's like, wow, you paid off with Gigi's student loans? What about me? Man, hook me up. Paid off all my student loans. And just like the back and forth of like, oh, so-and-so is in the trunk. You're in the trunk. So just the back and forth between everything. At least she is nice enough that later on she was going to say, hey, I'm bringing you food, Will. I think it is pretty impressive that she managed to find her way out of the trunk. I mean, it took her opening the trunk for them to get out. It's like, it does make you wonder, how the hell did she get out? I mean, I guess it just shows you how good she's at it. But it turns out, Edgar isn't a bad guy. He was basically working for one of the departments to basically sniff out weaknesses in the other department's defenses, and ended up finding out there's a whole bunch of corruption that was kind of caught up in all these government agencies. Well, there's, that some people were, corrupt or selling drugs and weapons and that type of thing. Very bad people working with other bad. When it comes down to it, the two of them are actually pretty good of a team when they end up kind of doing that combo that ends with, Frankie doing a clothes hanger. That was pretty tight. I also love the fact is that Susan, who is, a fan of Frankie, and Frankie's like, oh my God, I'm a fan of you, and they're having this back and forth over the phone and stuff like that, and just kind of being super like, oh no, your work is amazing, no, your work is amazing type of thing, and I really love that. I also love the reveal of Ray, the moment they showed up there, I'm like, oh man, the fact is Ray, it's like, I didn't have towels enough. And I thought when, Will was looking down, collecting stuff, I was like, we're going to find out Ray's actually the bad guy. I was like, oh man, that sucks. Especially because they give him funny lines and stuff this episode. I was like, oh, that sucks. But lo and behold, it's like, oh no, it's not because he's a bad guy in that regard. It turns out him and Gigi were having an affair. Didn't see that coming. Because in my mind, I was like, okay, I didn't even think she'd pop up this episode. I thought what we find out in the long run is that maybe she broke up with him for a specific reason. Maybe she was kind of like a spy or something getting close to him, but maybe she had second thoughts about it and stuff. I thought maybe that's the route they were going. It's like, no, she was having an affair with Ray, and apparently it's been going on for 7 months. I even love Edgar's judging her when she's trying to stop them. He's like, 7 months, and looks at her disgusted and shaking his head. I was like, I love that you have the audacity to judge her in this moment and stuff like that. And Ray and Will are fighting, and he's like, wait, and Will stops beating him up and goes, what? He's like, you said it wasn't my fault. And I just love Ray being kind of, because it is kind of sucky, because it's just like he knows how broken up this made Will, but it's kind of like this entire time you've been hiding that from him. On top of, you end up finding out the person he was with when he was when he was supposed to be on mission was her too. So that makes it even worse. It's like I literally took a bullet throughout all of that. Also, side note, when he caught that thing from the beginning of the episode, kind of like jumping off the car and swirling like that to grab us. So that was pretty badass. But it's like he went through all of that because Ray was off, hooking up with his ex-fiance. It's like, geez, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. But then I also find out, not on top of that, you also find out that your boss is a corrupt dude. He ends up shooting Ray. We don't know if Ray dies, but I'm assuming Ray's okay. It does make you wonder, will they work together or not? I kind of hope they do, but it's going to make things weird and awkward, especially if Gigi's still in the picture and stuff like that. I'm curious, because obviously it seems like his thing going forward, because the whole thing is supposed to just be the fact is he's very emotional. He lets his emotions run him. I just love it was in the trailer, but I also love seeing it in the episode of these people are getting married. Oh, it's so beautiful. She's like, we could always stay, we could stay here and you can catch Bouquet. And he's like, nah, we don't have time for that, But I guess that's going to be something we see more of him going forward, is him being very emotional, and I guess seeing, Frankie have to drop her guard and be a little bit more trusting to people, because it seems like the only person she's going into this trusting is her pal that pops up this episode, who was the bartender at the beginning, but he's also the one that shows up later on with supplies, tampons, which is like, okay. I was like, I guess that's just a good friend looking out for you. It turns out those tampons are explosives. Okay, to be fair, it's the CIA. It's like, she even said it herself, like the CIA's got all those toys and everything. Which I don't know why that's what set this off in my head, but I'm thinking about okay, reach for the front keys in my pocket, and Edgar reaches into Will's pocket and was like, that's not the keys, and Edgar's like, yes, I realize that now, and I love that he ended up throwing me the keys. He's like, really? I was like, what? You didn't catch that? It's like, why the hell would you throw the keys? Why didn't you just hand them? He's literally right next to you, but okay. But basically, we do have them coming together to basically be a new team. They're going into this squad because Susan's a profiler. I'm not really sure what it is. Frankie's buddy. what he brings to the table. Edgar's, he's an analyst and stuff like that, so he handles the tech side of things, and obviously, like, Will and Frankie are kind of the head honchos. They're kind of like the go in, bust doors down type of group. But I'm very interested to kind of continue the show and see what else it has in store for us. Like I said, I'm just surprised that Gigi thing came around that quickly. So it doesn't seem like that would necessarily be all that he's dealing with for the rest of the series, because I thought maybe that would be, but it's just like him being an emotional thing, and obviously, like I said, Frankie not really being emotional, and because she probably dulled a lot of that parts of herself just for the purpose of getting her job done, because it keeps her focused on the mission. So obviously, they're going to be influencing each other over the course of the series, and I'm very interested to see what that influence is going to be like, and also how much they're going to be at each other's throats, because not only just, on a personal level like that, when it comes to how they handle their emotions and stuff like that, there's also just like the professional aspect of like, oh, she's coming from the CIA, he's coming from the FBI, which I thought also really quickly, I'm actually surprised, because I was like, he's FBI, right? I was like, I knew that going into it, but I was like, why the hell are you in France? Like, FBI doesn't have jurisdiction out there. I guess, like, it depends on the case and stuff like that. But to me, it's just, I guess if it's stuff that went down in the States, like, and I guess the FBI has jurisdiction internationally to a certain degree. I don't know. Because it just, in my head, I always associated, like, domestic FBI, across multiple states domestically, FBI, but internationally is all CIA, like, run spots and stuff like that. So I'm also curious, as his tie-in, well, they never made much of a point, but it's like, obviously Edgar's file was about a lot of corrupt people, so obviously it included their balls, Will and Ray's balls, but then the fact is that like that was taken care of, but there were still other corrupt people, so I wonder, were they just taken down in between like the team being formed, or is that something we see as the series is going to progress, like potentially taking other people down from that information they gathered up? Maybe, I doubt it. It's probably more likely a situation of like, oh yeah, that was all dealt with off screen that you never got to see. It's also kind of sad too, because Ray ends up hearing like, oh yeah, like, if he was really such a bad guy, why would he, how could he sell weapons and the stuff we bring in, because I was on the job? But he's like, Ray, you're an idiot. That's why I kept you around all this time, because I knew I could get past you and sell all this stuff. It's kind of like a little disheartening. I mean, it's a little worse because he ends up getting shot afterwards, but still, like I said, I don't know. Like, we only got a little bit of look at Ray. Like I said, I hope he's okay. They didn't make up a point, but like, oh, Ray's gone and stuff, so I think he's okay. Like I said, I'm interested to see if him and Will Ray kind of work with the rest of the team. It seems like currently it's just going to be the 5 of them, so I'm interested to see kind of where that all ends up going, and just seeing, obviously, like I was bringing up earlier, what everyone ends up bringing to the table in this group, and just like the dynamics between them. Also, there was a line in this episode, I don't know if that was like a real thing or not, because obviously when like they were pretending to be a happy couple and everything, and he was like, don't bring my mother into this. He's like, no, really, don't bring my mother into this. I was like, and almost even like she kind of got caught off guard. I was like, oh my god, our first fight, haha. But it seemed like that was kind of a real thing of like, yeah, don't bring my mother into it. I was like, why is that? It's kind of like is your mom still around and there's kind of a bit of an issue there? Or is she kind of like a little eccentric or something, or is it just because she's going or something? I'm curious to see what that ends up being the case of. It's always interesting in these cases too, because I'm always curious, like, are you ever going to get introduced to like the parents of certain characters and stuff like that? Just because some stories won't really dive that far, because I'm sure it doesn't really need to be said, because it'll probably just, if you go through the trouble of introducing them and making storylines out of it, it probably becomes too much of an issue. That I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to think about. Is that something plot point relevant just because they made such an emphasis on that? I mean, maybe that was just him playing into the role and stuff like that, and that was him giving her a look of like, yo, play into it more. But I mean, either way, like I said, I'm very interested to continue watching the show and see what else ends up happening as the series progresses. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.